Thank you.
Let's begin where we should, in New York at the United Nations General Assembly, in that address by the President, William Ruto, yesterday. Let's listen in.
Given the magnitude and variety of challenges the world continues to confront, a more fit-for-purpose United Nations is urgently needed, one that possesses the legitimacy and efficacy in dealing with threats to international peace and security. A just and inclusive world order cannot be spearheaded by a United Nations Security Council that persistently and unjustly fails the inclusivity criterion. Similarly, threats to democracy will not be credibly resolved by an undemocratic and representative Security Council. It is vitally important for this critical institution to reflect the values it is entrusted to protect, to defend, to uphold on behalf of humankind.
Part of the President's speech at the UN General Assembly address yesterday. Let me begin with you, Sylvester. This address has got tongues wagging, especially if you look online. People praising the President for his eloquence, and others said he tackled very germane issues. Others criticizing him, saying he was reading he should have just criticizing his style of reading the teleprompter. Others praising it. All sorts of comments. What are your initial thoughts and reaction to that address by the President?
Definitely taking note that we've just come out of an election, and you know the sensitivity of Kenyans. You definitely not miss them in any of those corners that you have mentioned, whether they are substantive issues or not. Definitely, teleprompters are used by leaders all over the world. Even Biden was using a teleprompter. So, I mean, why would we really bother about a teleprompter? It's just a technological way of being clean when you're delivering a speech. But we need to deal with the substantive issues, and particularly, where was he pitching from? And we've known that there are issues which have been outstanding over a long period of time, and they are global. And since he was on a global stage, Harry is now the President of Kenya. Mm-hmm. In fact, President Ruto is no longer Kenya Kwanza. He is the President of Kenya. So what he says outside there is taken to be what Kenyans are saying.
Right.
What he does is taken to be what Kenyans are doing. And if he makes any kind of remarks, then it is taken to be, a remark and a position, a policy position of Kenya. Mm-hmm. So where he came in today, particularly, were issues like regional conflicts, exclusionist nationalism, mm-hmm. issues of cybercrime, issues of armed conflicts or regional conflicts, for example, the Horn of Africa, among many other areas. The issue of hunger and dangers of climate change, particularly in diminishing the value of agriculture, returns to agriculture, and stabilization of communities.
Right.
There are the issues of...
Are those what you're calling substantive issues?
Yeah, substantive issues.
From that perspective.
And there are also issues that deal with governance, particularly at the global level. There have been calls for reforming of the UN Security Council, among many other organs of the UN.
Right.
And I think this also saw the inclusion of some African states, to be part of the UN Security Council.
Right.
There are also issues.
So we'll get into some of the
just
issues.
Let me just sieve them. And then now where he came in, particularly with this proposal, was reimagining of multilateralism, talking about Pan-Africanization of the multilateralism, so that things are seen from the African lens, because Africa is, as he referred to issues of the South.
Yes.
Africa tends to be one of the most disadvantaged regions. Issues of debt relief. And of course, you can also remember that when Biden spoke actually his speech equally mirrored the same issues that were covered.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me get the rest of the panelists' general quick views on that speech. Dennis, if I can come to you, was it a good speech from where you sit?
Absolutely fantastic and fundamental. And even though the president was on a global stage, he was really practicing law, even from a Kenyan perspective. Because when you look at Section 14 of the Treaty Making and Ratification Act, revised to 2018, Article 26 specifies that any treaty or convention ratified by Kenya shall form part of the law. And also, if you look at the instruments of diplomacy, what the president did, he mixed diplomacy and strategy. And then, of course, we have the United Nations, the International Monetary Structure, we have economic aid, collective security, and military deterrence. So he stood on one of our primary modern policy platforms.
Right.
And he articulated not just the issues that we have in the country. He called technically for quantitative and qualitative multilateral mobilization. And his call was simple. It's an emergency, act now, call to action, and the political goodwill that is needed at a very urgent status. So what the president did, in fact, he came in as the African ambulance, technically, if you like it. And he was sounding the fact that the pandemic came, it exposed critical issues. I think I picked about 12 issues that the president addressed. Many of those issues ran across our border. They're regional issues that are critical.
Right.
I was at the Africa Union a few months ago, and I realized that democracy in the country, in the region basically, in African region, there's a huge deficit. It's receding and declining. And when you look at the issues of food security and many other dynamics, the issue of aid, thereabout, they are critical issues that the continent must address.
All right.
And if those issues are not addressed, then we sit at a grave danger, is ensuring that this nation that has been called dark for a long time doesn't see the light. But we are at a juncture where Africa is addressing its issues and where Africans are more alive to tools that need to justify their means to an end.